Carthage must be destroyed. Today we are going to make a homemade wet palette. I have been talking to some people on Discord, and it always shocks me when people have been painting for years and they've never tried out a wet palette. Now, wet palettes, if you know what they are a kind of a box or a base that holds water or some other chemical. I'm not sure if other chemicals are used in the proper store-made wet palettes, but generally it's just water, and it's water underneath a base that holds the water inside and keeps your paint hydrated. It makes your paint last a lot longer, and if you live in a dry part of a country like I do, paint dries out really fast if you just put it on a dry palette like so. So we want to make a wet palette today, and hopefully if you've never used one, you can see how easy and fast it is and inexpensive to make one is. So what do I have here? I have parchment paper. This is what you're going to need for this. You're going to need some parchment paper. All right, I'm in Canada. We got parchment paper and the papier parchemin. I can't speak French, but we got it. You need some Tupperware or a nice plastic container of some sort that will hold water. Okay, you need water, and you need some good old paper towel. That is all you need for a wet palette. So this is what you do. First, you're gonna take the paper towel and you want to fold it in a way that'll fit your container. I only got one hand here. Can I fold it? Now I found that paper towel is usually okay. I like to fold mine into, or rather I like to fold mine twice. I was going to say into fours. I don't know if that's right, but you fold it twice, and I just put it right in here. I just try and make sure it sticks on the sides. It doesn't matter. You can see I've used this same Tupperware for a while here too. I've got paint marks on it. I've been using the same one for years now, and I think it's up to 2 years now, and since I first started I never went back. But basically you make it in the shape of your of whatever box or whatever container you're using. Make sure the water's in there. I like to fold twice, as I said. Then you want to add water. I have no idea how much water is appropriate. I have not looked up any guides beyond what people showed me online on web pages and stuff, and they just said pour in water. But I just pour in a bit of water, like so. Sometimes maybe extra, but enough so it soaks up there. You're gonna have a bit of water running on the sides if you do a lot. I think you can see that in there, kind of pools there. You want most of it to be damp and moist there. If you have excess, it's no problem. You can always just dump it out after. The next thing you want to do is you tend to take your parchment paper and you want to cut out a side, or you want to cut out a size that will fit on top of the paper towel here. This is my parchment paper. I just cut it out. It may not be exact to the container, it doesn't matter. I like to put the side that folds upwards on the top, like so. And then let's see if I can do it with one hand here. I can if I hold it like this. You just push it down in there on top of the paper towel. So it's paper towel, then water, and then parchment paper. You're gonna immediately see here when I do that, some of that excess water starts pooling out on it. Now, that's quite a bit of water. It's not really a difficult thing if you have too much water. You want a bit of water on the top, I find, because those little, you see that got a little bit of pool of water on top? That actually helps to mix in the paint a bit better, I found personally. So I leave that. But any like real excessive water like that is gonna make your paint too runny. I have plants here, so hopefully the paint doesn't mix with it and kill these suckers. But excess water, just dump it to the plants. Yeah, just like so. And then it's not so bad. You got a bit of droplets in there. It's still damp at the bottom. And yeah, it's already ready. That's all there is to it, to making a wet palette. And then it's really easy. It's really inexpensive. I mean, I spent $2 for parchment paper, and if you only use parchment paper for modeling stuff, a simple roll is gonna last you forever. I think the most expensive thing is probably paper towel. I don't know why paper towel is so expensive, but it is. And then, yeah, that's it. It's so easy. And just to show you how good it is, like this wet palette, this homemade wet palette that I've made here, it will make my paint last and stay reusable. I'd say for, I'm gonna say 3 to 4 days. And that, to some people, may seem like it's actually a short amount of time. I've heard of some people having a wet palette and they last like a week. But I live in such a dry part of Canada that the water in here will actually start to dry up within 3 to 4 days. There's a way to combat the speed in which it dries up. But for homemade simple ones like this, typically I find within 3 or 4 days I'm already making a new one because I put so many colors in here that I no longer can use it, because you know, you obviously don't want to mix all your colors if you're just using straight colors. All you can do is mix it in here if you want. Anyway, here's some MSP paint. This is from Reaper Miniatures, some sample they gave me a while ago. I'm just gonna put some brown in here. And the point of the wet palette is that you actually get the moisture from the bottom helping to mix the paint. So even before I've added water to this, all the water from below it comes up. And you can see as I swish it around here, it's already got a good consistency for even just base coating, right? I don't have to even add extra water. That means it's faster. Add a color. If you got enough saturation from the water there, you're going to already have enough for even just base coating. I might like use these little droplets sometimes, take a bit of that and put extra in there if I'm doing some layering or I want a thinner coat. I will do that kind of thing, and you see it's quite nice already. Whereas like obviously, I'm just doing a demo, so it doesn't matter how much I do on there. Obviously if you go to this dry palette here and you put it down. All right, now this brush here, I shouldn't cheat and use a wet brush. I'll just quickly dry it here. All right, when you spread this around, it's a little wet, so it might look okay. But this isn't as thinned out because there's no water. Okay, it might be a little bit. There might be a little water that I still have in my brush. But I'm gonna thin that out, and we'll go back to here and thin this out. And we're gonna let this sit for a bit, and you're gonna see the power of the wet palette here in action. Okay, so I've let these both sit for 20 minutes. I went off and looked at some other model stuff on the internet for a bit, and did whatever. And so we have here the wet palette after 20 minutes. We can still see that water that I dipped it in is still obviously wet. Everything here is still wet because the water is being held by that paper towel, and then it's being enclosed by this parchment paper. The parchment paper has enough, I guess, I don't want to call them holes, but it has enough space that it allows the water to seep up through and the moisture comes through. If you actually touch it, it's moist, and that's the reason that these homemade ones can hold the paint for a while, because the parchment paper is actually allowing that water to seep up and out. So after 20 minutes, I can still stir this paint around and all is well. It's all still wet, it's all still beautiful, and I could continue painting on if I wanted to. So that's good. You'll notice here that I may not have put enough water in, because I can see here that some parts look like it's started to settle. And if you do have that problem where you think your wet palette isn't holding water, or rather it's not holding the paint up, it's not keeping the paint wet, the key might be just to add a little more water. Another issue I have is that the current container I'm using, and I don't know if you can see that, it's actually not straight at the bottom. I don't know if you can tell, but it dips up. So that doesn't allow the water to stay in one area. It actually kind of pools along the edges sometimes. But all in all, that's still good to hold the paint in. And if it does dry a little, that's okay. You can still put paint on top, keep it wet, keep adding paint. Like you can just add more water to it as well, and it's going to move around a bit. Now over here, you can see I kind of put my paint around here. Over here, you can rub the paint through here, and I'm going pretty vigorously here with the swishing. There's a bit here that didn't quite dry, but it's already dried up. That sucks, you know. It dries so fast on the dry palette when you can keep having it revived and alive on a wet palette. So that is why wet palettes are awesome, because they're able to hold water and hold paint for so much longer than the dry palettes. And, you know, wet palettes is just awesome, especially if you're called off a lot like I am. You know, I got a dog that cries a lot, always wants attention. Sometimes someone calls me, or, you know, got some business to deal with. It's just good because you can let it, your brushes and your paint, just wash your brush, put your paint aside, and any paint still in there is going to be fine. You can also just keep using that same paint to work on multiple guys instead of continuously adding to add on paint onto a dry palette. So that's my homemade wet palette. It's not flawless, I'm going to say. You're still going to find times when it dries out. For me, it's every 3 to 4 days. What I usually do after that happens is that I will just make a new palette, or I add water to the existing one, and sometimes it's okay. It really depends how much I've used to paint. I find that I use a lot of colors, so by the time I'm done and through with it, there's colors all over the place here. One thing that you can do is to store this thing is you can use saran wrap. I use saran wrap and a rubber band, and I'll just like cover it and hold it in there and try and make it as airtight as possible. If you have a container that has a proper lid, that's probably the best, especially if it's an airtight lid, because you can actually hold the water and keep the moisture inside. I find with the saran wrap, it will eventually still dry out, but it's for this container that I've constantly used, the saran wrap is the best route. I should probably just go out and buy a airtight Tupperware container. They're not that much money, but I don't know. I just use things right up until they're overdue, or at the end, I guess. See, and mine just looks like something like that when I'm done, and then I just put it in a drawer in the closet, and then I'm ready to use it the next day. Now, I know some people who have a wet palette, and they've complained about, I think it's molding or some odor or residue coming out. I personally haven't had that problem with my wet palettes because mine usually don't last more than 4 days, as I said. Excuse the noises there. Mine don't usually last more than 4 days, as I said here, because I paint quite a bit and quite frequently. And by the time I'm through, there's so much colors on there, I'm going to be switching it up anyway. But for people that do have the mold issue, I'm going to have to say that you just, for this homemade one, you're just going to have to switch it out, monitor it, and see how long it takes before it builds up. Maybe if you're in a more wet environment, the wet palette might develop mold faster, but I've never had an issue. There's apparently a method for the store-bought wet palettes where you add something to it and it prevents molding, but I don't know anything about that. I just wanted to show you guys what a wet palette is, how I make it, and basically if you haven't made one, how easy it is to make a homemade one before buying one. Because I'm sure if you go out and buy one, it's probably better than my homemade one. But like I said, I just use things until they're overdue or until it's expired, and I will just keep making one until one day I decide to go out and get a proper one. Anyway, I hope that this video has convinced you guys that that using a wet palette is a good thing, and that you should try to use one. It's not hard to make one if you want to just try it out, and if you really do like it, go get a nice professional grade one. Thank you everyone for watching. I do have some Hail Caesar battle reports, not battle reports, what am I saying? Hail Caesar walkthrough videos that I'm not done yet. Unfortunately, my models met I think it's the third or the fourth time going through some destruction. They unfortunately met the wrath of a small child. And I won't get into that story, but I've had to do a lot of fixing on them and not a lot of filming. And with the other projects I've been doing, I just have been putting filming aside. But hopefully this one gets me right back into it, this video, and we will see you guys on another video next time, where we either complete our walkthroughs of Hail Caesar or we go on to another topic. So thank you all for watching this channel, and please like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. We will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.